This is Dawn from Yogi and Bear. And here's Bear. Today we're going to talk about coming off of benzodiazepines, if that's even saying it correctly. Today we're going to talk about coming off of benzos. So before we get started with this, let me give you a little bit of history about me so that you understand a little bit about my age, my background, and stuff like that. So I'm a retired high school teacher. I taught high school business education for about 25, 30 years. And I retired and moved to Florida. I am 56 years old. And I was put on benzos by a psychiatrist when I was in my 30s. And it was right after I had my children. So I was working a full-time job and I had just had 2 new babies. And I stopped sleeping at night. I think my heart was elevated and I just felt like it was elevated just enough to where it was affecting my sleep. So I first went to my gynecologist and he put me on Paxil. And when I told my dad that, he was like, why would you get on an antidepressant through a gynecologist and not a psychiatrist? So I took his advice and I went and I saw a family psychiatrist and he put me on Wellbutrin. And Wellbutrin is more of a stimulant, so what the problem I ran into was I wasn't sleeping at night. So he put me on Klonopin and just a little 0.5 milligram of Klonopin to help me sleep at night. And so that was essentially my regimen for 25 plus years. Wellbutrin in the morning, Klonopin at night to sleep. And I'll tell you, I didn't have trouble sleeping for 25 years. Fast forward, I retire, I started doing yoga. Things had slowed down drastically in my life and I thought, I don't need to be on this stuff anymore. And when I moved to Florida, it was really hard to get prescriptions for those types of drugs. Nobody here wants you on benzos, and all the doctors treat you like a drug addict, which essentially you are. I hate to say it because your body becomes addicted to a benzo, for sure, and even antidepressants. So let me preface before I tell you my story that I'm just sharing my experience. I am not giving any advice here because this journey is going to be different for anybody who decides to go on this journey. I'm just going to share what I've been through and what I'm still currently going through. So this is not something that happens overnight, and it's not something that even really happens within a year, and I'm not even at my year point. So we'll go back then. So I was on benzos for 30 years, and when I moved to Florida, you can't do therapy from state to state. And I came here and I didn't have any doctors that knew me or my history. So it was really challenging. And I found that in order for me to get my prescriptions, they wait until the last minute before they send them to you. And then they were coming late. And as soon as you miss a couple days on a benzo, if you're familiar with the results, you feel the withdrawal almost immediately. I would say within a day and a half, you start to feel the signs of your body going through withdrawal. And it's not like a sickness at first, or it's not anything really crazy at first, but for me, it made me feel like buggy-eyed, like, ugh. And it was funny because you can almost tell when you're used to being on something like this when somebody's having medication issues, because it's just such a weird feeling, and it's recognizable if you know what you're looking for. So anyways, when I first got here, I had met a friend And he kept telling me, it was a yoga friend, you gotta get off your antidepressants, you gotta get off your benzos, you gotta quit doing that. And you need to do psilocybin. Psilocybin will help you come off of that. So that's how I did it at first. I started weaning myself off, and then what I would do is I would microdose with psilocybin, and I would do about 0.03 of psilocybin, and all that would do is really take the edge off. Wouldn't get me high. It would just take the edge off of the withdrawal. But when I was doing that, I was putting serotonin back into my body, so it was giving me the stuff that my antidepressant was kind of working. So coming off of the antidepressant and then messing with your serotonin, not sure if that was a good idea. It took the edge off. It got me off of my benzos the first round when I wanted to come off. What happened though is shortly thereafter, when I was probably still withdrawing, it's hard for me to put together the timeline because of the craziness of what happened in my life thereafter. Let me just say, I'm not going to talk about what happened. I'm just going to say I experienced an extremely traumatic experience, and my body became very sick, and the anxiety that I experienced, I would have to say that I did not sleep for a very long time. I'll just put it that way. And it was making me crazy. The only way I would sleep is if my friend would give me Xanax. She'd give me a little baby Xanax, and I'd sleep for 5 hours. And I was going crazy. I was trying to find doctors, and you can't find doctors in Florida. And if you do find a doctor in Florida, it takes you a long time to get to see a doctor in Florida. And then when you want drugs, they don't want to give you drugs. And it's insanity. I know the whole medical system's screwed up, but maybe that's another talk for another day. Anyways, I'm pretty sure I was in nervous breakdown. I tried to check myself into the hospital probably 3 or 4 times. I didn't sleep. I would say it took me about 6 months to fully recover. And in that whole time period, I started going to doctors, trying to find myself a psychologist or a psychiatrist that would get me back on drugs to control my anxiety. I was in full-blown anxiety for at least 3 months. And then what happened is I got a doctor to start giving me stuff, but they wouldn't give me what I was on for 25 years. They were giving me other stuff, and it was making me sick. So I finally found somebody who put me right back on Wellbutrin and gave me Klonopin so that I could sleep, and that took the edge off at night. So I was right back where I started from. And I would say the traumatic event happened to me in August of 2023, and I was probably stabilized by January, and it was a nightmare, let me tell you. So I stabilized, and then I was on the Wellbutrin and the Klonopin for another 1.5 years, and it was just such a nightmare dealing with doctors around here and getting meds. And I found this therapist in sometime after January when I stabilized, and great therapist, and he would tell me, you know, Klonopin is like drinking every night. It suppresses your nervous system. It's not good for you. Over the length of time that you've been using it, it can cause a lot of damage with your body. And he just really promoted trying to get off of the benzos. Not necessarily the antidepressant, but definitely the benzos. So I wasn't even thinking about it at the time, and I really had a great relationship with this therapist, but I wasn't coming off these drugs, not after what I had been through. But after being stabilized for about 1.5 years, I was like, okay, I came off them before, I did okay, and the only ththing that threw me back into this insanity was I wasn't ready, and I wasn't fully stabilized, and I'm stabilized again, and let's try it again. And I had only planned on coming off the Klonopin, and so I started weaning off the Klonopin, and I did that by at first cutting them in half. And these are just 0.5ers. And then I reduced it down after a couple weeks to a quarter, and then I think I even reduced it into a half of that before I fully weaned off of that. And in that whole process, bright idea, I said to myself, well, if you're getting off the Klonopin, you might as well get off the Wellbutrin too. So I weaned myself off of the Wellbutrin as well. And somehow I always manage to find the perfect storm. So here I am at 56, weaning myself off of some pretty serious medication. For those of you who aren't aware of what 56-year-olds go through, it's a lot of hormonal change in your life. And I'm retired, so I have a lot of time, and I teach yoga, and so I'm into a lot of self-care, and I eat healthy, and I don't do a lot of crazy stuff like I did in my youth. And so as I was weaning off, I met somebody, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on all of that, but I think, and my therapist said to me, he said, it's not really a good idea to date. Like, they tell you if you enter AA or you get into a program that you're not supposed to be involved with anybody. But I didn't consider myself in a program. I didn't consider myself recovering from alcohol or anything like that. This is prescription drugs. To me, it just didn't make sense. Like, what's the big deal? I can handle this, no big deal. Well, now I understand that whole philosophy that they deal with, because the bottom line is coming off of a benzo is like becoming unaddicted from any other addiction that you might have. And it took me a little while to figure this out. Meanwhile, I continued to date and become involved with somebody. And I think that if I would have been involved in a healthy relationship with a healthy person, that it would not have been so traumatic. But my experience with somebody who manipulated me and who didn't really love me was that it almost felt, the only way I can explain it is the addiction that I had with the Klonopin kind of reset itself into almost having an addiction with a person. And this person was manipulating me, and it was not a loving relationship. I thought it was a loving relationship, but the red flags that I experienced, I attributed to my drug withdrawal instead of associating them with the person who was giving me the red flags. I thought, you're just being paranoid, you know, this is a good person. And it wasn't. It wasn't a person who was looking out for my best interest. And my addiction moved to this person. So this person became kind of like my soothing mechanism and my addiction at the same time. And it was not healthy for me, and it didn't feel healthy for me. But yet, I felt like I couldn't get out of it. It's really hard to explain if you haven't been through it. And that's one thing that I have learned throughout this journey, these past 4 years, is that unless you've been in a situation, it's really hard to understand what someone else is going through. And the only reason I'm so aware of that now is I watched friendships and how they dealt with me dealing with this. And that helped me to understand that they really didn't understand what I was going through. And then seeing myself and how I reacted, it took me probably 4 months, maybe 2 months after I stopped seeing this person to realize, like, what part I played in all of this, and how the addiction that I had to the benzos and coming off of the benzos and being involved with this person and the manipulation that I experienced, how I became addicted and how unhealthy it was for me. Bottom line is I was forced into no contact with this person because this person was online dating, while at the same time they were the one who had said that they wanted to be in an exclusive relationship and that they loved me and blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's really not what this whole thing is about. I guess the lesson that I learned here is that my advice from my therapist at the time, as far as dating might not be your best choice, was probably the choice I should have went to. I look back and I laugh at it now. If I only listened, but you know, I always find the perfect storms. Okay, so in September, and this was all through a cancer diagnosis that my mom had. My mom had kidney cancer, and I had to go back and I had to take care of her, and all of this crazy was going on. And just before I was going back to take care of my mom is when Romeo, we'll call him, sent me a text about a Halloween preparation, and he didn't crop one of the pictures that he sent me, and it was a photo of his phone and his screenshot not cropped and open in his dating app, and it just, everything just clicked because he had two phones and he said one was for work. It was just a whole crazy thing. So no contact in September, but Dawn could not figure out what was going on with her body. Nothing that was going on in her head made sense. It didn't make sense why I still had this person in my head when I knew that the relationship was unhealthy. I knew that it wasn't love, but yet the intensity and the constant, I would say obsessive compulsive thoughts that kept creeping into my mind, and I couldn't understand. I was talking to my dad with him, and I was like, he's like, well, what's going on with your situation? And I was like, I still keep thinking about this guy, and said, it doesn't make any sense to me because this is wrong. And he was like, he was trying to help me and give me rituals and things to kind of get through this. And I'll tell you, I had to dig deep. I had to dig deep. So this was September, and I would say that fast forward, and we are now in January. And I feel like I'm fully healed from this relationship craziness, but I'm still going through and dealing with the benzos. And I didn't really realize this until I feel like tingling in through here and over through here. And I was laying there one morning, and this only happens when I'm still. So when I say I had to dig deep, I started meditating. I started doing a lot more serious spiritual practices. And I've been a spiritual person for a long time now, but I had to dig deep and kind of hermit up and stop doing a lot of the things that I was doing. I became antisocial, and I just started looking into benzos, looking into intermittent reinforcement, which was a new term for me, looking into dealing with manipulations, looking into like what was going on with my body. And I was laying here one day a couple weeks back, and I used ChatGPT, and I said, you know, I feel like I've been through a spiritual awakening and my body just feels funny. Like, why is my arms tingling? And ChatGPT was, I can't even remember how it responded to me, but the more information I provided it, and then once I got back into, I came off of my drugs, as soon as I said that, ChatGPT was like, well, it sounds to me like your nervous system is still not settled. And so what I've learned, and what makes sense after I've researched it even further, is you're talking about a 56-year-old coming off of antidepressants and benzos after being on them for 30 years. I've been off of them for 6 months now. And so you're talking about 30 years of suppressing my neurological system and not feeling and being put to sleep every night with a pill. And so fast forward, here we are, I'm 56, I'm hormonal, I get hot flashes, I'm on hormones, very difficult to regulate. My nervous system was suppressed for 30 years. So not only am I hormonal, having a suppressed nervous system for so long, and being hormonal without having a suppressed nervous system, you're talking about somebody who is just feeling everything. And I'm super in tune to my body, so I feel the way my body reacts when different stimuli, different, anxiety or conflict or, whatever it is I'm going through. I'm feeling all of that with an unsuppressed nervous system that has been suppressed for 30 years. So it's been a rough road, and they say that coming off of benzos can take 1 year to 5 years. And I've always known, or I've always had it in the back of my mind, like, if in fact you can't do this and you're supposed to be on these drugs, yes, you'll go back on them. But not having the ability to find any kind of a doctor here. And I did find somebody like a couple of weeks back, and then she moved practices. She was supposed to contact me. I haven't heard from her. So the person that I had found before, that was mostly tap therapy, and I had started looking into some cognitive behavior therapy because I wanted to have tasks and learn how to regulate and just deal with what I'm dealing with now without tapping. The tapping was mostly for the trauma experiences. So I'm 6 months in and haven't went back on my benzos. I'm not sleeping, but I'm sleeping better. The good news is that when my daughter was here, I slept better. So what that tells me is there was something calming about having my daughter in this house with me for the 3 weeks that she was here, because I really felt somewhat back to normal with my sleeping. So, and I Googled that, I chat GPT'd that, and they did say, as a result from that having somebody that comforts you around you and, staying with you, it was good and healthy, and that would help you sleep better. And it wasn't perfect sleep, but it was better sleep. And so she's been gone now, which is why I haven't made any videos, and I felt like I was somewhat stifled as far as what I wanted to talk about. And then yesterday I went and I had a Reiki session with one of my neighbors here. And I don't know, I just felt lighter when I woke up this morning. And I thought, you need to get back to doing what you're doing. And if you're going through something like this, you're not alone. There are other people that want to come off of their benzos. And again, by no means am I telling you that you should do this without a doctor's supervision. It's been a really big struggle for me. The problem is I can't find a doctor. It's really hard to find a doctor, a good one. And so I'm just doing it, and I'm trying to do it as educated as I can do it. And I've been following the rules, and I didn't use the psilocybin to come off of the benzos this second time around, so I've really had nothing to kind of take the edge off. The guy took the edge off in the beginning, which again which is the lesser of two evils, I would say the psilocybin. I would do that again if that was something that I had foreknowledge of. However, here I am at 6 months and I'm still working it. The funny thing about it is I don't crave it. This is not a psychological withdrawal for me, and it never was a psychological withdrawal. Even in the beginning, even the last time I did it, my brain didn't want the drugs, but my body didn't know how to function, and my body just got super out of whack. So it wasn't a psychological, it was a physiological response that my body had. And so the dependency is definitely there. For me, it just didn't happen to be up here. And I don't know, we'll have to check back in and now report back in as to where I'm at on this journey. I'm hoping that maybe after a year, if I can stay stable and not have anything crazy happen in my life. My mom is cancer-free. Her surgery was successful. And so I don't have to deal with that with a parent yet, but I do have 83-year-old parents. And, you know, anything can happen at any point in life, and you just deal with it when you deal with it. It's just, I'm not sure how I'm going to react. The traumatic experience that I went through a couple of years back was something that made me really ill afterwards. And so I'm not sure if just the trauma to the body, you know, had anything to do with it. And then the psychological aspect of what happened, just altogether, it was a lot. So a work in progress. I know this was a long post. I hope that anybody thinking about coming off of benzos, or anyone who's been on them for a long time, will, you know, hear my experience and hopefully get off of them, maybe before they've been on them as long as I've been on them. 25, 30 years is a long time. My body doesn't know what the hell is going on with it, and I'm gonna work through it. I mean, that's all I can say. I'm just gonna keep working through it. So, peace and namaste.